And it's actually kind of surprising news coming out of Cleveland today, as the Cleveland Cavaliers have fired their head coach, David Blatt. It was I'd say it was about 2 hours before we came on air tonight that the news came down that they fired him. What was your first reaction when you heard that?
Well, I mean, when Blatt was first hired, it was the summer that LeBron was coming back to Cleveland, and I always thought it was kind of a risk taking a guy like Blatt, who had never been a head coach in the NBA, had only coached in Europe, and now you're not only putting the pressure of him on him to take over an NBA franchise with playoff aspirations, but you're giving him a player who he's not just one of the best in the league, but he's also someone who's very controlling about the plays the team runs. So I thought that was going to be an interesting dynamic to see how that worked out. That was a big challenge for a guy who's going to be a rookie coach in the NBA. I would say I'm surprised by it, but I'm really not, just because we saw in the NBA Finals, there were times in the closing minutes of the game where LeBron almost looked like he was taking control of the team from Blatt and, in effect, kind of pushing him aside and trying to call the plays himself. So, I mean, it was clear that, at the very least, Blatt didn't have the full respect of his team. And if you don't have the respect of the main player, the big name on the team in LeBron James, it's going to trickle down to the rest of the team. Now, I am surprised by the timing of this. Obviously, they got blown out by the Warriors on Monday night by 34 points, which, from what I heard, was the catalyst for this. But they had won their 2 games since, and it kind of looked like they were making a bit of a comeback. So, again, this is surprising, but in the end, you're firing a coach, and let me just find it here. He has an 83-40 regular season record, and he went 14-6 in the playoffs during his season and a half. I mean, you never hear of an NBA coach being fired with that type of record. The closest I can think of it in recent memory was when Hollins was fired by the Grizzlies a couple of years ago after they didn't get past the second round in a few different playoff series. So, I mean, this, to me, and everyone in the Cavs organization acted like the players were surprised by it. I'd actually read an article on the Yardbarker Network that when the Cavs players were called into a team meeting, they didn't know what was going on, and they almost thought that that Kevin Love was being traded, which I guess would have been a little less of a shock just by the way he's fit in. But to me, I mean, I feel like the front office looked at the situation and said, all right, we need someone who our star player can actually respect and work with, because I just don't feel like James and Blatt were able to have that chemistry that you need between a star player and a coach. They replaced him with Tyronn Lue, who is a former point guard in the league. He was a coach under Doc Rivers, so he has the experience. Maybe he'll be able to work with LeBron a little better. I do feel like Lue was someone that James wanted as the head coach, so we'll see what happens. But I almost feel like Blatt was doomed from the start when LeBron came back to Cleveland.
This shows you how weird sports is, because you have a coach in David Blatt who, and you just read it off before, he had a 14-6 record, and he gets fired after 2 years, yet Marvin Lewis is 0-7 for the Cincinnati Bengals, and he still has a job. It shows you how weird sports works.
I get the point you're making. I think it is a little different between Cincinnati and Cleveland in the NBA, though. I mean, Cincinnati, you got to remember where they were before Marvin Lewis took over as head coach. The Bengals were not a playoff team for 15 years before Marvin Lewis came in. They haven't been a big impact in the NFL since the days of Boomer Esiason at quarterback. Marvin Lewis took that franchise. He can't win in the playoffs right now. He didn't have teams that were really capable of. They probably should have won a game this year, and their team imploded in the last 2 minutes. But Marvin Lewis brought that franchise back to respectability, even though I'm not going to lie. After the way that their players completely collapsed in that final minute and the way that he basically lost control of his team, for the first time ever, I would have seen a point to him being fired after that. But same token, what in God's name was Joey Porter doing on the field? That's not an excuse for Adam Jones, but Joey Porter should not have been on the field for that.
Oh yeah, believe me, I completely agree with you. That whole mess, and I talked about that last week on the show a little bit. That whole mess was just was just idiotic that they pretty much had,
Mhm.
and it's just going on a little bit of a football tangent here for a second, but I remember
Mhm.
I was watching the game. They had that game in the books pretty much, and because
Yeah.
two people decided they were bigger than the team, they decided, well, let's
Mhm.
give up 30 yards because we're boneheads. I mean,
Mhm.
you're not going to win a game playing like that.
Mhm. And I don't take any fault off of Adam Jones here, but I think it was a bad job by the referees for not throwing double flags out there, one on Joey Porter and one on Adam Jones. And if they had done that, it would have been offsetting penalties, and they wouldn't have gotten that second 15-yard penalty that pushed the Steelers into field goal range, because Joey Porter had no business being on the field there. Same token, though, Adam Jones is a freaking lunatic. So.
Oh yeah. But I mean,
Mhm.
Mike, you and I have both watched football over the years. Have the refs ever done anything correct?
Yeah, they've done a few things correct, but the fact is, we focus on the incorrect things just because that's what gets all the attention all the time. I mean, I'll criticize the referees, but here's the thing: the referees are always in a can't-win position. You know, the things that they do right go unnoticed, and the things that they do wrong get completely magnified and talked about for a week after they happen. You know, we can name a lot of the mistakes they made, but I guarantee you this. You know, it's hard to defend the referees sometimes, but these referees, you know, if you don't like them, we can go back to the replacement referees, and we all saw how terrible those referees worked out. So
Oh,
it's
yeah,
a lose-lose situation for these guys.